Coming to you from sunny Orlando, Florida, welcome to the Paperstac podcast, where we cover current topics in the note industry, give you tactics for your note business, and talk with industry leaders to make you a better note investor. And now, your hosts, Brett Berkey and Rick Allen.
This is Brett with Paperstac, and I'm here with Rick Allen, also with Paperstac, and we are on our fourth episode of the Paperstac podcast. A lot of paper stacks right there.
Yeah, a lot of paper stacks. Hey, episode 4.
Yeah.
Well, here we are. It's been fun. Been quick.
Yeah.
No, it's, what's crazy right now, Brett, is, at least for me, is like I'm busier now than I was 6 weeks ago. It seems like I have like constant stuff going on. I'm jumping from one phone call to the next, to one Zoom meeting to the next. And it's been crazy, man. It's been lights out.
Yeah, no, I get it. I like at night, because I'm home, and usually if we're at the office, there's, hey, you want to go outside and chat, or you want to do this, or we go take a lunch. Like now it's just kind of, I just sit here in the office here. Nobody's there. And
Not to mention, like, my wife the other day, it was her birthday on Monday or Tuesday. And we had like family over, and I cooked and smoked ribs, and we're like kind of social distancing, but in the same place celebrating her birthday. And I was like, I just kept having to creep back over to the computer and do one or two things. Cause it's just, and she's just like, will you put it down? And I'm like, babe, I was like, oh, it's 7:00. I'm like, yeah, I'll shut it down. But then the kids get to bed, and I'm like, I just go back over there for another like 10, 15 minutes. I look up, and it's been 2 hours, and I'm just still doing work. And so it's just, man, it's crazy because there's no separation right now for work and business. And it's been like, I guess I'm going to have to set some parameters, because if this just becomes permanent, like we're talking about, hey, maybe we have remote office hours quite a bit. And it's, man, what are we going to do? It's like, you have to set those barriers. So I'm interested to see how that plays out.
yeah, if it makes us more productive, I'm all for it. Yeah. And then don't have to do laundry as much. I'm all for it.
Yeah. Don't lie. You're not showering as much either. I know I'm not. I'm like,
No, I grow a beard until it gets itchy, and then I shave it.
that's what I do. Or before I have another Zoom meeting. It's been so funny. Like some of the stuff, like some of the Zoom gaffes you would call, you know how there's been like there's somebody on Instagram that's called boat ramp fails, where people just maybe not the best at driving boats, and they own a boat and they'll just crash their boat or whatever. But like these Zoom meeting gaffes, there's been like, I've heard of like CEOs of hospitals being like in a Zoom meeting, like laying in their bed without their shirt on, guys just sitting there, just like hanging out, not even thinking, oh, wow, people are actually seeing me. Like, actually, my dad's an attorney, and one of the judges here put out a memo to all the attorneys. Look, you have to show up to court with your clothes on. People are showing up with no shirts on, or people are showing up, one person like sitting on the toilet. It's just,
Oh my gosh.
a catastrophe. So it's just, that's been pretty funny, is what's some of the Zoom or the virtual meeting gaffes, I'm sure, are just been priceless.
I got to find this. It's happened with my daughter. Like, she's on the iPad. She has a big iPad, and my wife walks by, and she's just wearing underwear or something. Natasha has no idea that there's a video going, and she's on, that's a video right there. You know, she walks off real quick. I'm like, you got to tell me when these things are happening. I'm like, she's talking to a screen. I don't know what else you think's happening. She's sitting there, she's talking to a screen. I figured you probably knew that's a video.
I think I need to have a recording in session sign.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Hey, the green light's on. Somebody, don't walk around. You know what I mean? Or
that's actually a really good idea.
I don't know. We're going to look at that, because for me, I don't even think about it. Like, I have meetings that are popping up like right and left. I'm not even really, you've got your schedule and what you're planning on getting done. We do it via Status Hero, that we're always like, okay, here's my goals for the day. But so many times I got somebody says, hey, I got so-and-so that wants to jump on a conference call. Can you do it? Yeah. And so my wife doesn't know that, or my kids don't know that. If it's a Zoom meeting and I'm sitting there, they're doing their thing. And so it also is distracting when like they're sprinting by, like in and out. It's guys.
Yeah.
So anyways, I know that's not what people really are tuning in to hear about, but
the doorbell rings.
Yeah. To hear
what'd you get, Rick?
Yeah.
What Amazon bring you?
Yeah, real life scenarios. We were talking earlier. It's TJ's birthday tomorrow, one of our partners. So I'm hoping to get to the golf course.
Nice.
So that'd be good. It's been such perfect weather. So
yeah, it is nice out. Yeah, let's jump into it. So I'm in episode 3. We covered how to get started in notes, and people ask, "Okay, cool. I know what I need to do to go in that direction." To
Oh
go
yeah,
for
what direction? People, you buy the note, and so
Yeah,
people are like, what's the next step? And it's kind of that's a huge part of it. Doing the due diligence, analyzing what you're supposed to do is great. But once you have the note, that's where it's okay. It's time to execute on the plan that you set forth. And if you got a performing loan, it's set it and forget it. But if you have a non-performing loan, those are high touch loans, and you really have to figure out what am I going to do? And really, there's a couple different options to look at. Are you going to take the house back, or are you going to try to keep people in the house? And it's all
mhm,
about really, it's about knowing what you want to do, having your plan. What's your ultimate goal? If you're one of the guys that wants to get the house back, you're either going to do it on a with less friction with the borrower and they sign it over to you, or you're going to have to foreclose. So one of the things like we want to touch on today are like, okay, what do the different workouts look like? And what are the benefits of them? And why might you do them? And how do you execute them? So we'll
yep.
try to, it's a lot to cram into a small session, but we're going to rip through it real quick.
Are you new to the mortgage note industry? Have you been wanting to learn the step-by-step process to purchase your first mortgage note? Well, you're in luck. We've convinced our CEO, Rick Allen, to break down everything he knows about mortgage note investing. Through a series of 50 videos, you'll get everything from start to finish of where to purchase notes, how to purchase notes, and all of Rick's investing techniques he has developed over the many years. From performing note tactics to non-performing notes, Rick gives you everything he knows about investing. Bonuses include our glossary of industry terms, Rick's own proprietary calculators he created to evaluate notes, discounts from our partners, our Rolodex of vendors, a private Facebook group, along with a lot more. We've packed so much content into the Academy to take you from beginner to expert in no time. To learn more about the Academy, go to academy.paperstac.com/welcome. Again, that is academy.paperstac.com/welcome.
Cool.
Okay, roll.
Yeah. Like I said, first of all, know your end goal. What do you want to do? If you want to get the house back, or do you want to keep people in there? And I think as much as it is important on what you want to do, you have to really find out what the borrower wants to do, because that's going to really dictate which path you go. Or if you have already predetermined a path, it's going to determine on how you're going to navigate that path. And really, ultimately, how do you find that out? The most important question is the one we ask every time we have a non-performing loan. We ask the borrowers this: do you want to keep your house? That's it. They're going to tell you yes or no. If they don't want to keep their house, it's going to point you down the direction of, okay, I'm going to wind up with this house. And no matter either way, no matter which direction you go, whether you're keeping them in the house or you're getting the house back, it's always important to present them with options. You don't ever want to say, this is the way this is going to go. You want to give them several different options. Let's look at, okay, the people they don't want the house anymore. They're like, look, I'm tired of it. I just need a new start. Who would want to do this? These are people, or who would want this type of workout. They're people who are looking to get the house back. They're the fix and flip guys. They're the people who are comfortable doing fix and flips on real estate, or they're comfortable handling the real estate. Or they're people who say, look, the value in the house is much higher than the value of just the loan. I think I don't know if it was last episode or a few episodes ago, or maybe it wasn't even on this podcast or somewhere else, but we bought a loan actually off of Paperstac. It was a contract for deed, and the total debt owed was like 45 grand. The house fixed up is worth 160 grand. It was maybe 180 grand. Obviously, I'm buying the mortgage, not for the mortgage. I'm buying it to get the house back. And so what we did is we offered this lady cash for keys. They're like, look, do you want the house? And she goes, no, I moved out already. I'm the last person was supposed to sign the house. I was supposed to sign the house over, and I didn't like the attorney, so things didn't work out. And I was like, here, we'll give you 3 grand. And she did. And we ended up selling it for 90,000. And we did this all in 60 days. And it was just, so those are the home run deals, but you have to know, do they want it or do they not? And then the next thing, if you're going down the route of we're going to get the house back, is it like, you have to dangle the carrot, right? You got it, like, what's in it for them? And so we usually always, if there's enough meat on the bone or cash for keys, that's look, how much is it going to take? And we'll tell the borrower, like, we'll throw you 2 or 3 grand, 4 grand. We paid 15,000
Wow.
to a borrower. Yeah. To sign the house over. But we were into the house for 100 and it was going to be worth 220 at that point. And so it was a 2010 built,
Oh,
3,000
nice.
square foot cookie cutter stucco house here in Orlando that you're just like, yeah, I know that I can sell this quickly at a discount. So but the next thing you want to do, you're dangling the carrot of, look, I'll give you some cash because everybody, sad to say, has their price. But the next thing is you want to offer them, like, look, we'll also agree not to seek a deficiency judgment, which basically means if they owe you 180 and you can only sell it for 150, you're not coming after them to try to get any additional money. So look, we're good when we're done there. One of the benefits is once you start engaging with the borrower, talking to them on getting the property back, you can schedule a walkthrough on the property and say, okay,
Interesting.
yeah, you can get somebody to look at the property, lay eyes on the inside of it and see, okay, how's this property actually look? Does it look like we're going to need to do a lot of work or no? Does it look like, no, this one's like just a lipstick on a pig and relist it for sale? So that's kind of another benefit to running the route of dangling that carrot, offering them money. You're putting them in a good space in their head. They're willing to start working with you. And then it really comes down to, okay, if I'm going to get the property back, what's the mechanism for me to do it? There's going to be a deed in lieu or a consent to judgment.
Is that the
And
same thing as a foreclosure?
yeah, so exactly. It's a consent to a foreclosure judgment, but you can put in stipulations like, look, we won't come after you for deficiency or stuff along those lines. And the reason you would do one as opposed to the other. So if there's clear title and there's no secondary liens or mechanics liens or anything like that, you could do a deed in lieu of foreclosure and they just sign the deed over. Sometimes what will happen is you will run into a situation where there's a second mortgage or there's a homeowner's lien. A homeowners association's got a lien on there. That's a big one we run into. And so you may need to foreclose to get them off. You may need to foreclose to clean up title. So in that instance, you'll sign a consent judgment, or there's a third option that we do, and that's a consent. We have them sign both. So we would have people sign a consent judgment and a deed in lieu. And then we also had them sign permission to negotiate on their behalf. And what we'll do there is if they sign the deed in lieu and the consent, we know that if there is a secondary lien, we can go in and say, look, we've got a consent judgment signed, but we also have a deed in lieu. So if you're interested in settling with us, we're happy to pay you 3 or 4 grand or 5 grand or whatever, just to release the lien and save us from having to go through the courts.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing to do. Or it's another great idea to do that because sometimes you might have a deed in lieu and maybe you gave somebody cash for keys. So you maybe gave them 3 or 5 grand to move out and they sign the deed over. And then all of a sudden something else pops up on title and you're like, oh no, we got to foreclose now. If you have a consent judgment, it's so much faster to foreclose. In our experience, I'm not an attorney, so go seek attorney's advice, not giving advice. But for us, it's been so much faster to foreclose if you've got the consent judgment. So it's like, boom, you can move right to summary judgment. It trims down the cost and the time of a foreclosure. So we typically, if we're going to do a deed in lieu, we'll just go ahead and get a consent to judgment signed also, preparing for what may pop up.
So what does a borrowers think about that? Like when they're signing both a consent judgment and a deed in lieu, are they like, well, why am I signing this one if I just signed this one? Or
For
are you
the
gonna?
3 reasons I just told him, like, look, we ran title, but things have popped up in the past. At that point, we usually tell the borrowers, like, look, you're getting your money either way. And you're in a situation to where we're putting in there that there's not going to be, that we won't seek a deficiency. So you have
Okay.
the sort of same protections. The only difference may be if it does have to go through foreclosure, we typically let them stay in the house and say, look, you
Okay.
can stay in the house until the foreclosure is complete. So you have a little extra time.
Interesting.
So I haven't had it be an issue where people are like, why are you doing this? Once you explain it to them, they're like, oh, okay, I get it. And they're fine with it.
No, these are all things that happen though after you've bought the note. There's no way to do this beforehand because of rules and there's that waiting period thing. How's all that work?
So typically, and I say typically, you're not supposed to contact the borrower prior to owning the loan. And there's a 45-day cooling off period that you have to wait before you can do any sort of loss mitigation or anything like that. And you send letters during that time saying, hey, this is who we are. We just bought your loan. There's been a transfer of the loan, stuff like that. But you're not supposed to reach out to the borrower for 45 days unless there's ways around it. Non-for-profit HUD certified credit counselors are allowed to reach out. So those are some options people have used in the past. And my daughter's at the window smiling at me. So yeah, I guess I need my green light to let her know I'm recording. Yeah, but so there are those 45-day cooling off periods of, look, you need to not touch the borrower unless you got the non-for-profit. That's what we've used in the past, as a non-for-profit HUD certified credit counselor to go out there. And they do a great job. It's also nice because it's able to reach out to the borrower in a non-threatening manner. And you've got people who are trained to actually work with borrowers. So but yeah, you definitely don't want to start making phone calls to borrowers. There is a couple of groups out there who will ask for permission to make a phone call to the borrower, but typically that happens on performing loans. Like First
Okay.
National Acceptance, FINAC, they do that. They'll reach out to the borrower and they ask that, and I'm okay with it because I know they're tied to a bank. And so the regulations and rules, they're governed pretty hard and they're very by the book. And I know they're not doing stuff. I would like to have a feature on Paperstac that allows them to do it through our platform. That would be nice.
That'd be really cool. I don't see why not. We already have the phone call feature.
We already do have the phone call feature. So it'd be something to look at. And I thought about it, I was like, I'd like to put that out there because that would be a great way to make it really accessible for First National Acceptance.
Yeah, I think that phone call on the other end would be confusing unless they understood, hey, it's because you're getting a phone call from FNAC or
Oh my
Paperstac.
gosh. I can,
Like,
yeah, that's a little difficult. That's obviously a conversation offline here. But yeah, that's typically how it works out for the
non-performing.
well, for the non-performing when you're taking the house back. Now there's the other side of the coin, right? Look, I actually want to take the non-performer and I'm not really interested in getting the real estate back. I'm interested in buying a non-performing asset, turning it performing, realizing the passive income that comes along with a performing loan and enjoying that. And so there's a whole different workout strategy that goes there. The guys who are wanting to do this or wanting to run this strategy, they're the self-directed IRA people who are like, look, I like performing loans. They're not doing the work on the borrower reach outs. They're probably leveraging their servicers because that's what has to happen. But you may want to do this type of workout if you're into passive income or you're into helping people. If you want that mission-based investment, this is a great way to do it. One of the things that you really want to ask these borrowers, if you're running this scenario, is, look, why did you fall behind? What caused you to stop to miss your payments? A lot of times, most of the time, I've heard just hardships. I've heard people got sick. That's a big one. Family members sick, kids sick. That's like gut wrenching when you hear that. When somebody's, look, my kid got sick. I've put all my money into it. It's really like that one. It's tough to start looking at it objectionally because I got kids and it's like, look, I get it. I understand. And then occasionally you have people say, I just stopped making payments because my neighbor stopped and nothing happened to them. That's not been the answer as of late. That's more of a 2012, 13, 14 answer when there was still a whole pile of inventory out there. But that's what I've heard that in the past. So really it's, look, why did you fall behind? And maybe they lost a job. If they did, you want to make sure, look, do you have a way to make payments right now? Most of the time, if they're reaching out for a modification, they do have a way to make a payment. So that's good to know. And then it's always, look, it's the same thing. You want to dangle the carrot, right? You want to tell them what's in it for them. You will say, look, this is what we're going to do. I can give you a fresh start. You can keep your house. By the way, you've asked these people that same question. Do you want to keep your house? The answer you got from them was, yes, I do want to keep my house. And so that's how you know, okay, I have to go down this route. Let's work with keeping them in the property if that lines up with what you're trying to do. And so you want to let them know, look, I can give you a fresh start. We can, we can work on putting this behind you. We can let you keep your house. One thing that we like to do is we like to look, do you have some money? If they have been making a payment in 2 or 3 years, do you have some money saved up to put a good faith payment down? Like they may owe 40 grand over a
Right.
3-year period, but it's look, or 50 grand or something like that. It's look, I'm not going to expect you to catch up and make 50,000 over the payment, but you need to be able to put down 5, 6, 7 grand. And that's usually what we'll ask for something like that. It's like, look, we'll restructure or we work the rest of this, but I need to know that you're committed to moving forward, because the last thing I want to do is restructure something just to have you re-default. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very true.
You've got a past history of not paying. Show me that you want to stay and pay. Let's put some money up, put some skin in the game.
Yeah, it's you talked about people getting sick. I remember in the MWM Fund documentary, you were talking about that guy out west, and this kid got sick, and it was that. Yeah, that I saw in that documentary. And if you haven't seen that documentary, just look it up on the MWM YouTube channel, or I'll leave a link to it in the description. But it's a documentary that was shot, and yeah, I could see that really touched you. You could see that you weren't faking the emotions that you were talking about there.
That was one of the most challenging asset workouts I've ever had to be a part of. Partly my brother growing up had a brain tumor. And so my mom and dad that was a big part of my life growing up. So it was something that I was able to, there was a lot of empathy there from me. And so we bent over as far backwards as we could for that guy. And it was a bad story. He actually lost his wife, got ill, and he lost her, and then his kid was sick. And so we restructured his loan, and he stayed on and paid for 2 or 3 more years. And then he eventually said, look, I just can't do it again anymore. I think his kid ended up passing, and I just have to step back away I can't be at this house. It didn't have a happy ending, so to speak, in that respect, but we were able to stay and help the guy out. But those are the kind of things you're going to hear. Yeah, people are going to get sick. There's hardships. There's just life is happening. People like, wow, you know what kind of hardships are going on right now?
Yeah.
It's super relevant to where we are right now with the quarantine and the coronavirus, stuff like that. But unemployment's high. And so you have to be sensitive to it. Well, once you find out if they can make a payment, this will really, or put a good faith payment down. That's something that's going to happen if, it's been 18 months, 2, 3 years, something like that. They made payments. If I were to come into that situation right now with where we are, I'm not expecting. So I'm like, look, people are 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 payments behind, however long this thing is going to go on for. That you can work with, and you're not looking for a $5,000 payment.
Yeah.
But if they're 4 years behind, you're like, hey, we need to establish that you're in this, right? And then you want to figure out, look, how much can they afford? And one of the things we'll do is, once we find out, we call it a 75% get back on your feet plan. Say, look, if your payment was $1,000 principal and interest, we're going to go $750 as your payment for the next 6 months. We'll apply whatever you pay towards past due interest. If you can do this and you can put down a good faith, you're showing me like, look, it was a blip on the radar. You're ready. You want to stay and pay.
Mhm.
And at that point, we'll put them into a forbearance plan, and we won't do any sort of debt collection on them. And we'll say, look, show us you can pay, and let them start paying again. During that time, we'll collect the proof of income. We'll start having them fill out the paperwork to do a structured modification and modify their loan. And you can do a lot of different things with people's loans. You could adjust their interest rate to lower their payment. If they had like a job loss, look, I can't afford that payment anymore, but I could afford this payment. You can start tweaking stuff. You can tweak the interest rate. You can do a principal reduction. I'm not a huge fan of principal reduction unless it's a situation where look, these people are so upside down. I need to do something. Hopefully I bought it cheap enough that I could say, look, I can do a principal reduction for them and put them to a break even point, or maybe give them a little bit of equity, because it motivates them, right? It keeps them paying. Nobody's going to go into a situation where they're like, look, the house is worth 200. I owe 120. Why am I going to make a payment on that? That's just a bad business decision at that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
So
totally.
we'll do the principal reduction, or we'll extend the loan, which is Obviously, that's the easiest. If there was a 240-month loan and you can say, look, I'll extend it to 300 months or 360 or whatever you want to do. It extends it out. It stacks the front end with some interest, which is a nice thing if you restart their loan, and it reduces their payment. But you still want to present options and say, look, here's what we have. This is what we'll do with our options, and give them one or two options. Something we do like to do is if there's a big chunk of principal or a big chunk of interest that we're gonna forgive, we'll split it off into a second mortgage, and we'll have it bearing 0 interest and nothing due on it. And if they go ahead and we'll set a specific timeline. If you make 3 years of timely payments, that is forgiven.
Oh, wow.
We'll forgive that piece. Like, we're going to throw it out the door anyways, but this ensures that they stay and pay, right?
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is modify someone's loan, strip out a bunch of money that's owed, and then they make 2 payments and quit.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we'll start this all over again. Right.
Yeah.
So this puts at a little bit of a stop loss. It says, look, we'll separate this off. It can be contingent upon on this. You make your payments, not more. You don't fall more than X amount of days, or your payments aren't more than. There's always the grace period. I think America floats in the grace period. There's a people who's like, yeah, my loan's due on the 1st, but it's not late until the 15th.
Yeah. I was about to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear that all the time. And so it's like you structure it to fall to work within the reality of the grace period. But if you do that, you can really structure win-win-win situations on keeping the property and starting to get some passive income.
Is that something that you guys thought of? You guys, like the Cloud Capital, MWM, like the whole breaking out that thing and kind of keeping that as a reserve? Is that something that's standard?
I don't know if it's there. It's something I came up with. I was like, look, I want to try doing this. I think I can't, I would hate to say that I'm the one that came up with that. I'm sure somebody else has done it. And if not, then I don't know. But it just seems so logical to me because look, we're going to take this and break this off and say, look, if you don't pay, it works out too.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good way to keep people honest and keep people paying. And really, it's a way to gauge and say, are these people really doers or are they just talk?
Isn't that something else I remember I learned in one of the trainings you did with Kevin one time was the thing you put in the contract that if they stop paying and then they start renting out the house, it's like a fast track to foreclosure. I forget what you called that.
Oh, that I definitely didn't put that in there. That is assignment of rents. And that's the institutional guys put that in their mortgage papers, that if somebody were falling behind on their payments and then they're starting to rent out the property, you can go to the courts and the courts can actually force the renters to start making payments to the courts.
Wow.
Yeah. And what that was for is people had 7, 8 properties and they would fall behind, but they're collecting $15,000 in rent between them. And so they're able to sit there and just start they're able to use rent payments to fight the foreclosure case.
Oh my gosh.
It doesn't take much. Just most of the time, some of the foreclosure attorneys were working on, they're like, all right, give me $1,500, $2,500 and I'll kick this can down the road. And man, you can really wreak some havoc.
Yeah.
On a foreclosure with $2,500. You can if you get the right attorney, they can start picking loan files apart and start asking for some ridiculous things that are just not there. They drag their feet, they miss deadlines. And it's just, there's no motivation on anyone's part on that side. The attorney, the longer they drag it out, they get another stipend of $2,500 and all they're doing is form filling paperwork that they're probably not doing. They're probably paralegals doing. And then for the homeowner, it's look, I'm staying in there, either staying in the house for free or I'm renting it out, collecting cash.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually have a close family friend. And when we got together one time over in Melbourne, he was talking about how they do that and how they'll just look for one little thing in something that was signed, just one thing off. And he's like, that's it. He's like, I can extend them for another 6 months. Yep. And he's like, I just keep driving the lender crazy until they either give up or it's just, you wouldn't want me on the other side of one of your bar or one of your lenders. He's a pro at it. I'm like, I don't know if that's something to be proud of.
Well,
I was like, that's a really messed up kind of thing.
Everyone's got a niche, and sometimes people were taken advantage of in the lending side. So I understand it.
Well, that's true too. I
If
told
there's a
you.
tough situation involved, like there's good people that want to keep their house. There's usually a solution there with an attorney or with a lender if you like actually want to keep your property. But yeah, I've run into those situations where I've paid $10,000 on a cash for keys, and it wasn't because we wanted the property that badly. It's because I knew the attorney that was on the other side was a royal pain in the ass. And I go, they were asking us to fly, they subpoenaed all the payment histories, and they wanted somebody from each institution that had it to testify to the payment histories.
Jeez.
So if I just wanted my guys, the people that were servicing my loan, to go out there, there was a $3,000 appearance charge for the CEO to fly out. I had to pay for his airfare. I had to pay for his room and board, and I had to pay him an hourly.
Oh my goodness.
So I was doing the numbers. I'm like, I'm going to be at like $7,000 on this guy to do this. And they want me to conjure up the past 3 people behind him on people that I don't have relationships with. I was like, I'll give your borrower $10,000 to sign the house over. He's like, all right. They did it. And I was like, I'm going to pay $10,000. I'm going to pay it one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't happen a lot that's when you start cracking assets north of 100,000 that A, I'll pay that much, but B, you run into people who are savvy enough getting attorneys like that. Most of the time, the lower price fan asset folks just don't do that. But certainly the more expensive the asset, usually the more savvy the borrower and the more attorneys they have in their pocket.
Okay.
Yeah. We've done some with $500,000 houses to where you could look at the legal trail. We were looking to buy one that was worth probably 500. And we were going to get it for 280. And actually we did do one in Kentucky where it was a $500,000 house and we got it for 225. And by the time we got done, judgment was already done, judgment already in place. And this guy was a professional, man, filed bankruptcy on us 3 different times. My attorneys dropped the ball one time and missed a deadline. So he was able to file another bankruptcy. He was savvy, and it was tough. It was tough. And by the time we got the house back, it was 24 months later, 36 months later. And my attorney's fees and taxes. That's the thing, is sometimes it's not just time and attorney's fees. You get some of these high dollar houses that have $15,000 in taxes, and it goes for 3 years. That's $45,000
Yeah.
on top of another $45,000 from the attorney's fees or anything like that. And you're like, it gets bad. So yeah, workouts can be the key to anything really is velocity. How quickly can you get it done?
Yeah.
That's it. How quickly can you get it done?
That's interesting. This has been a good lesson. A lot of things learned. I'm sure people are taking notes and getting some information and able to actually take this to use in their actual note business. So if you're listening to this and you have further questions, you can always leave them in the comments or reach out and maybe do an episode. And what do you want to ask Rick? There's a lot of stuff in that. So that might be something for the next time. Rick, any ending points that you want to end on?
No, man, I think that's it. Try to create win-win-wins. That's it. If you can try to create a win, know what you're going to do, and always ask that question. Do you want to keep your house? Do you want us to keep it? Because that's going to tell you which route you're going to go and which route is the most likely for a quick and fast outcome.
Cool. All right. We'll see you guys next time on the next episode of Paperstac Podcast. All right. See you, Rick.